past Amsterdam.
This is the Amsterdam Film Show. Amazing. And welcome to the studio, Jons.
Thank you very much, Cathy.
Cool.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so your first time on the Amsterdam Film Show.
It is, yeah. I was supposed to be here around January, but right that Thursday, all cinemas closed. So here we are, 6 months later.
I know, amazing. So it's been a while. We did do one show, I think, during when the cinemas were locked down, where we looked at some streaming pics. But really, none of us have been able to see anything on the big screen in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. It's all changed this weekend.
Yeah, finally.
Yes. So that's great news for the local film industry, the cinemas, and for us. So we finally have things to share. Luckily, you've seen some of the films that are now coming back to the screen. That will have some reviews from Jons and nothing from me, but I will talk about what I want to see because I haven't been able to see anything, and some local film news. So normally we talk about new releases on the Amsterdam Film Show. Not really many technically new cinema releases, because most of the local cinemas are going to show things that released earlier that I suppose people might have been able to watch online.
I've watched all of my picks online.
Yes.
And 2 of these are from 2019 even.
Yes.
So yeah, it's like a while ago. But they're finally hitting cinemas, thankfully, because they're great.
Yes. So let's give people a taster. We've got Nomadland. That's one of my picks. And then Judas and the Black Messiah, American Utopia, and Wolfwalkers. Mm-hmm. If you want to know more about those, coming up. We've got news about the movies, a bed cinema, and all sorts of things coming up. But first of all, maybe tell the listeners a bit about you, Jons.
Sure thing. I'm from Limburg in the Netherlands, at the very bottom of the country. Our Dutch listeners will probably pick up on that immediately. And I came to Amsterdam about 6-7 months ago to live in Diemen because I'm studying film at UvA. I have, as of now, still not been in the university building at all.
Wow.
But that's the way things are, unfortunately. I've very much enjoyed the city still, even though there are not a lot of events. And I'm very excited to finally get into the cinemas again.
Yes, well, Amsterdam does have its fair share of cinemas, doesn't it? It's like so many screens, like I think over 30, maybe, or definitely over 20 or so. And yeah, so you haven't. And thank you for coming all the way over from Diemen.
It was quite a bike ride, especially since my maps sent me all along sports fields, through parks. It was a complete mess, but I made it just in time.
Oh, thank you. So we're going to give you an update on going back to the movies. Are you ready, listeners? So from Saturday the 5th of June, officially, theatres and cinemas are allowed to open now. The lockdown measures have been eased. So there's a maximum of 50 people in your cinema screens. For some people and some places that's much nicer because you get the extra space. Enjoy it while it lasts. So, so there you are. And the measures that apply. So when you go inside, you have to stay 1.5 meters from everyone. Remember that, of course. And you usually get signage as well, so you've got to follow the in and outs, which can be hard in the dark and whatever, and the thin corridors, but they work it out in these small venues in their screening rooms. So follow the arrows inside, wear your face mask as well inside, and just take it off when you're sitting down. And then remember, I think some of the bars, they have to close at 10 o'clock because you cannot buy alcohol after 10 o'clock. And those are the main things. And you cannot just buy tickets on the door. You do have to buy them in advance. Those are the main things to be aware of, aren't they?
I think so. I was lucky enough to go to Rotterdam Film Festival yesterday, actually.
Amazing!
So a few days before they officially open.
Yes.
Because it's an event and they do event testing through that way. Everything you just described, that's basically how it's going down as of now.
Yeah, so made a screen break from your TV or your computer screen, seeing a movie up, where how it's meant to be seen.
Oh, it was amazing. Especially the first one I got to see with my girlfriend was an Iranian film called The Dare. And not only was it the first film I've seen in months in the theater, it was a film that has never been shown in the Netherlands or on the rest of the world in this form since the 70s.
Great. Eventually we'll get some film festivals as well coming back to the city, of which, again, Amsterdam has plenty. So we've got lots of films to talk to you about. But there you are. You've been briefed on how to, get ready for the cinema, get your tickets. But what film are you going to see?
I really want to recommend to listeners to Wolfwalkers. It's an animation film released originally in 2019, but hitting the cinemas now, by Tom Moore and Ross Stewart. if you're familiar with the animation studio, the Cartoon Saloon, they're Irish-based, and they have made now a trilogy of animation films about Irish folklore. The other two were Song of the Sea and The Secret of Kells. And these films, they focus on specific Irish folklore. Wolfwalkers is the story of a girl named Robin. Her father is voiced by Sean Bean. He's the most famous one in that voice cast. And she has to move to a large city in the Middle Ages where there's a forest nearby that is populated by wolves, of course. And one day, hunting with her father, she comes across a red-headed girl named Map McTire, who has the magical ability to transform into a wolf herself. Yeah, and these two worlds of the city and the forest start to clash. The story itself is quite reminiscent of other things you've probably seen. Princess Mononoke by Ghibli is very much in the background of this, although that is a very mature film with a lot of blood in it. This is very kid-friendly.
Okay, good.
12-year-olds would have a great time here. But what is really special about this is the animation. It is 2D animated, which is so refreshing to see in this Pixar Disney world of everything has to be computer modulated. And not only was this drawn by real people, you can see the sketch lines still moving around in the background. How they take on the look of the world is absolutely phenomenal. The city's landscape is illustrated as it would be in a 11th century portrait. So it has this weird blocky look that doesn't make any sense in a 3D perspective, but it looks gorgeous in a 2D perspective.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. While the forest has all of these beautiful curls and Irish patterns to really bring this dilemma between two sides, nature and culture back. Yeah.
I've seen the stills for it and it looks a bit psychedelic.
There are parts of it that are like the magical parts, of course, where it flows into a wolf's perspective. And the colors change and it becomes even sketchier, to say it like that. That are like really astonishing, especially to see this on the big screen, I imagine. I saw this through streaming, and I can't imagine what it's like to see it projected on a big screen. Yes,
especially what you were saying about the sketch lines. The biggest screen possible, then, you're going to take advantage of that and see the beauty of the animation in all its glory. Cool, so not too scary a story.
No. No, I think it's quite manageable for most kids.
Yeah, I remember Song of the Sea for sure, and I've seen parts of that. I think what I noticed about the screenings in Amsterdam for Wolfwalkers is it's at the Rialto and the Eye, but they do have the Dutch voice actors. I think they're not using the English voice actors, so that's something for listeners to be aware of. But the online version is available if you want to watch that. But of course, it depends what you're going for, I suppose, for the animation or just for the story and the drama. There you are. So will you be tempted to go back and see it in the big screen?
I'm thinking about it. Later on, we're going to talk about a movie that for sure I'm going to watch again in the cinema. But this one I'm considering because it is just... Well, I have to say that the voice cast, that is a bit of a stumble block for me personally. Because when you have Sean Bean, I mean, you have to use him. But
Who
I do
would be
get
the Dutch
it.
equivalent?
Exactly, we don't have him. But I do understand it for kids. Reading all those subtitles might be a bit too much. So it is a logical decision.
Cool. So that's Wolfwalkers, screening at the Amsterdam's Rialto and the Eye Film Museum with the Dutch voices. But a great film pick, Wolfwalkers. But now we're on to Nomadland. You must have heard of it. The Oscar winner won 3 Oscars. Best film, if I'm right.
Yes, it is.
Best actor for Frances McDormand and
Best director.
Yeah, that's it. Best director. So it's a 2020 film, but it hasn't made the big screen really until now.
Yep.
And I don't know, why do I want to see it? I think it's the storyline. There's not much of a plot, but it's just, what's the storyline? Basically, according to Rotten Tomatoes, short and sweet, a woman embarks on a journey through the American West after losing everything during the recession. And I think she's also recently widowed.
Yeah, I think 5 years ago within the story.
Right.
Yeah. And she joins, she has already joined this community of people that live in their vans or in campers and travel across the country.
Yeah, that's what appeals to me, Jons. I just want to see them doing that. I watched, there's something on Rotten Tomatoes, a featurette where Frances McDormand, as the actress, is showing the inside of her trailer and all the little cupboards and space-saving things. So into that. I think there's a lot of Amsterdam hippies who will also be into that as well.
I can see that,
But, there's a kind of melancholy to it as well. So, it's not all fun. How did you feel with that? Was it depressing for you or not?
It's not, no, absolutely not depressing. I would say it's realistic. The problems that it shows of these people who live in these conditions is that they haven't really necessarily decided to do this. She was forced out of her home because of the recession, but they've decided to make the most of it and to enjoy living on the road. Melancholic is a beautiful way to describe it, really. It is beautiful in glimpses, it is sad in parts. A really wonderful mixture of both there.
There's what was this quote in Rotten Tomatoes now? She said, she refers to herself as houseless but not homeless. Because I imagine she finds a community within these, people like her who are kind of, nomads going across different places, moving from place to place. And then also the temporary jobs as well.
Yep.
And that. I think it's the landscape and the cinematography. I'm not going to be able to replace that at my TV at home, no matter how big it is. I want to see it on a big screen. I've heard great things about the cinematography. Yeah, how about you?
It is, America has just wonderful nature. And the cinematographer takes full effect of that. To look at the coast, the deserts, it's absolutely stunning. What I want to say about that quote of she is not homeless, she is houseless, it is because her van is her home. She attaches so much value to this little kind of crappy van even. It's technically not a house, but it is where she lives, and she doesn't want to separate from it. Even when, at a certain point in the narrative, she gets the advice to just sell it and buy a new one. That would be better, but she can't do that.
Wow. No, that is brilliant. So it's nice. It's not too long, 1 hour and 48 minutes. That's nice and short and sweet. I like that. A female director and screenwriter, so I like to support those as well. So remember that you can only get 50 seats per screening. I think this one will be a popular one.
Absolutely.
But it's not just showing at the Filmhallen, guys. If you want to go and see it, there's also showing at the Cine Centre in Amsterdam, the Uitkijk, the FC Hyena, that's in Noord. I mentioned Filmhallen, the Film Theatre Rialto, the Criterion, and Studio K. So there you are. Obviously, it's an Oscar winner, so they know that plenty of cinemas are going to screen it. No, that's great. So maybe see you down there, because I will try and get a ticket. Maybe not for this Saturday, but certainly very soon.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
So we're back. We're talking about the cinema releases, not new ones, but basically the first chance you'll have to see them on the big screen in Amsterdam. What's your next pick, Jons?
It is Judas and the Black Messiah. Out of my 3 picks, this is the heaviest one, to say the least. Yeah. It's a recent thriller that was also included in the Oscar race, and it is about the real story of the assassination of the Black Panthers. Of the Black Panther leader of Chicago, Fred Hampton, in the 70s.
So this is a story, I mean, I didn't know anything about this until this film brought it about. And it's like people have this concept of the Black Panthers. And this is, I think, reading the synopsis of the film, it's like, oh my God, we should see this and then kind of set our thinking straight. But then also, I'm guessing the acting and the writing...
It's, where to start? With the history, it is interesting because as a person growing up in the Netherlands, I knew nothing about the Black Panthers at all.
Yeah.
And I heard from American friends that they are very much framed as terrorists. At the very least, it is much more complicated than that. They were often people with very good motivations. As you can see in this film, with Fred Hampton being a Black Messiah, someone who really stands up for his people. In the middle of the film, there is a speech that he gives, and I have a line here from it: "You can kill a revolutionary, but you cannot kill the revolution." And I think most viewers, when they get to that part, they will be standing up as well and shouting along with him, because the actor disappears into the character, and it's like you're actually listening to a speech given by Fred Hampton.
Yeah.
On a filmmaking level, it is also phenomenal. The story is not just about Fred Hampton himself. It is about Bill O'Neill, played by Lakeith Stanfield. He is ostensibly the main character.
Ah.
And he was a FBI informant at that time, who was recruited by an FBI agent in the film played by Jesse Plemons to infiltrate the Black Panthers and see if they could undermine the operation. The FBI is very much the villain in the story here.
Mm.
And from what I could look online, most of these things that are portrayed here are completely true. And you really get the sense that FBI director at the time, J. Edgar Hoover, just wanted to destroy this operation without any actual proof of wrongdoing.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic thriller. It is you realize what the stakes are, that these people that you start caring about are in very real danger. If you know the history behind it, you know sadly how this ends. Not well, I can say. But that level of tension that never leaves the film.
Yeah. Does it leave you feeling angry? How do you feel? Disturbed?
I was furious, at the ending. It's really upsetting to see how this played out. That you have this very likable, revolutionary person who could have really changed the country if he was given the opportunity to do so. And I can't say really what happened, but that didn't turn out the way it did. And that is unbelievably frustrating.
Yeah.
America would have been a better country if Fred Hampton was still alive today.
Assassinated at 21 years old.
Yeah.
And just even saying that, assassinated, I mean, like, as a fact, I'm guessing that's how it's portrayed in the film, and is able to do that. I mean, I just can't get my head around it.
Yep.
And not just, by someone who, no one's gone to prison for that, I'm presuming. Yeah.
I don't believe so, no.
Wow. And then, of course, with the Black Lives Matters movement and all that's going on in the world today, you think we really haven't progressed far, or have we? I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
It is, Fred Hampton is played by Daniel Kaluuya. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah,
and he
Londoner, Daniel Kaluuya,
Exactly.
great.
He did win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for this. And he is absolutely phenomenal. He deserved that. I think he's one of the best performances that year by none. But I'm not entirely sure how old he is. I think he's like approaching his 30s.
Yeah.
When you get that title card at the end of the film that Fred Hampton was 21, it is a real shock.
Yes.
That someone this young could have rose this high and still was assassinated so young as well.
Yeah, and that's what we called him, the Black Messiah. Must have been really charismatic at that age as well. Do they tell the story in a very linear way?
If I remember correctly, they did. They have a little bit of an opening, which is interesting, of a documentary done in, I think, the 90s about this FBI informant, Bill O'Neill, where he is played by Lakeith Stanfield in old age makeup, where he has to reflect on what he did back then and what his actions as an informant, what kind of consequences they had. He had to live with what he did there.
Yes.
Because without his intel, probably Fred Hampton would have survived that.
Yeah. So shocking. It's interesting because at the beginning you described it as a thriller.
Yes.
So very much like following that and the machinations of what is quite a violent event. So for those of you who are listening and think what kind of film, if you're maybe not so much into political dramas, it's not that kind of a film, would you say?
No, it's primarily a thriller because Lakeith Stanfield is the main character. The tension derives mostly from will he find out? And later on the tension is will he continue doing his work? Because then that becomes the real threat. At the same time, it is also a little bit of a romance story. Ooh. Because Dominique Fishbank plays Deborah, who is a young activist in the Black Panthers who falls in love with Fred Hampton. She is also terrific. And a good chunk of the movie is dedicated to their budding romance. Oh. And I'm not entirely sure how much this is based in real history, but you can see that Fred Hampton is an unbelievably charismatic and energized person when he's giving speeches. But when he's alone with someone, he's much more introverted and a lot more shy. And that was a really beautiful side of the story as well. And I'm really glad they included that.
So it humanizes him as a real
Absolutely,
person rather than Black Messiah. He was just a man, human being, assassinated. So that's Judas and the Black Messiah. Oh, I was going to look up where they're screening it in Amsterdam. They're showing it at the Uitkijk this weekend and on Monday, and Studio K. So that's over in Oost, Studio K, and Uitkijk is central. Maybe there'll be some more screens added, but those certainly in Amsterdam. While you can get there if you want to see it on the big screen. What else can you see on the big screen in Amsterdam that you've picked out, Jons?
Well, my number one pick, I have to say, for this Saturday is without a doubt American Utopia. Before we get to that, I have to ask you, have you ever seen Stop Making Sense?
No.
I won't say that it's mandatory viewing before, but it does complete the picture, kind of. Stop Making Sense is probably seen as the best concert film ever made. It's from the 80s by Jonathan Demme, and it is a performance by the Talking Heads.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And it is pretty phenomenal if you watch that. And American Utopia is sort of, in a sense, you can say a sequel to that. It is also a performance filmed, this time by Spike Lee, legendary director Spike Lee, of the Talking Heads. Well, not precisely the Talking Heads, I have to say. It is David Byrne, the lead singer of the Talking Heads, with a completely different lineup behind him, but they do perform only Talking Heads songs. And the reason why you have to see this, even if you are a Talking Heads fan, if you are, you absolutely have to. You have to drop everything and go immediately. Is that it just has this wonderful energy to it. If you want to go somewhere for an hour and a half to lose yourself and kind of forget everything, this is the one.
Yeah.
Not only is it staged beautifully, with every song adding more musicians, just like they did in the 80s with Stop Making Sense. So we start off with just David Byrne talking on the stage. Then we add 2 dancers, a few singers, a guitarist, keyboardist, etc., until the stage is filled with 25 people. Yeah, this one is a bit more difficult to talk about because it is such an experience that you really have to live through.
It's unlike anything. Having watched the trailer, I'm like, what is this? It's crazy. It's not like a normal film for me. It's not like a normal concert film. For me, it's the choreography and the staging. And like they say, it's the Broadway feel to it because it was a Broadway show, I think. That's right. So no, it's good. It's not just all about, you're right. So there's the mix of the different musicians. I like to see that. There seems like a lot of energy there on the stage. Yeah. So it's not so much a story, but it's like a full of energy celebration. Absolutely.
Those who have seen Stop Making Sense will remember that by the end of that, David Byrne was absolutely soaked in sweat because that man just did not stop jumping around and hopping all over the stage. It is truly amazing. I think now he is 67.
Wow.
So he can't quite do that anymore. But he still has that charisma to him. And just like the show has this energy to it, he also realizes that times have changed since then. And there are some brief moments where he reflects on the political climate of America at the time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Because it's called American Utopia. And I think he's Scottish stroke American.
Yes.
But okay, so he does talk about that as well. I always like the bit where they talk, when you hear it from them. Some people don't like it when musicians talk. I do. So no, that's cool. Where can we see it in Amsterdam? I'm currently going to look it up for you. And of course, when you picked this show, this film out for us, Jons, I went to listen to the Talking Heads soundtrack and we'll listen to one song. And then I realised how many of the Talking Heads tracks I really love, but had just forgotten. Let's see when it's playing for you in Amsterdam. There we go. The Cine Centre is your choice, I'm pretty sure. Oh, and also the Eye Film Museum and the FC Hyena in Noord. So that's 3 choices.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Yes, you're back with Broadcast Amsterdam and also the Amsterdam Film Show. So Jons and I are picking out things for you when you're flocking back to the Amsterdam cinemas. A big news is that a big Dutch film is out in Dutch cinemas. You can watch it with English subtitles at the Eye. The name of the film is, I think in Dutch, What's the name in Dutch?
The Slag Om De Schelde.
Yeah, try saying that. It sounds like a song, De Slag Om De Schelde, but it's actually a serious film, war film. And the English name is The Forgotten Battle. And that's how they are promoting it at the Eye Film Museum, by the way. So what is the story? It's like almost a record-breaking film budget for the Netherlands.
Yes,
like
it is.
14 million they spent on it. So it's set in Zeeland, on a true story, of course, a true battle. So November 1944 in the town of Walcheren in Zeeland, the Netherlands. Tens of thousands of Allied and German troops are in combat. And, basically over 10,000 people died in that battle. I don't know anything about it.
I have to say, personally, I also do not remember this from history class.
Yeah.
There were a lot of battles, of
Yes.
course, in this period.
So, big film, a big budget. And the director, the writer, actually, a well-known Dutch film writer. Her name is Paula I can't remember the second name of her. Oosterbroek or something. Oosten. Paula van Oosten.
That's possible.
She is the director of Tonio. I did see that film, but that's nice as well. A female film writer, but she was saying it's not so much about heroes because they were about really difficult decisions, and that's what's interesting about this film. There's a lot made about the Dutch resistance, but there were a lot of Dutch people fighting with the Germans, so that's hard to get around your head. But this film does tries to keep it real and look at all those things in all the different colours of that history. So that's at the Eye Film Museum, amongst others, and they're showing it with English subtitles. Big thing. Before the end of the show, I'm gonna give you some headline news, kind of in the Dutch film industry and stuff like that. So let's go and rattle through these. Jons, there, and everyone listening, there's a bed cinema in Amsterdam. It's in the Houthavens, and it's from a company called Matt Sleeps. Not the whole month. I think it's going to run out until the 23rd of July. No, the 23rd of June. They're taking back bookings for, they've got double beds, about 15 beds, not many. And you can watch kind of classic screens, modern classics. You can't really choose the film. You just take what you get on the day. Several of the first few dates are taken, but from about the 12th of June, you can get a bed. It's about €45.
Are the films related to sleeping in any kind of way?
No, not at all. They're not bad, the list of films. You can see on their website a selection of the films they've chosen. It's just all about the gimmick, really. So €45 for a bed. Of course, you can fit two people. Maybe you can squeeze two. I think they only allow two people, no threesomes. But there you are. They clean all the bedding afterwards because they've got viewings through the day. What else is back on? They've got an exhibition at the Eye Film Museum. That's on. The Movies is closing down for a year, but there was a worry that it wouldn't continue, but it is going to stay around. If anyone was worried about that cinema in particular, The Movies is okay for now. It hasn't gone bankrupt, but it is going to be renovated for a year. There's news. Pathé's in the news because they're going to expand, amazingly. They refurbished the Pathé City during lockdown, various other things, but they've got plans for growth. They're talking about maybe a cinema in Amstelveen.
Yep.
Which would probably a good idea because it's a huge residential area. So there's lots of movement on there. We've put pins to some of these stories on our Pinterest board, and notes on this will be on our website for the Amsterdam Film Show. It's broadcastamsterdam.nl, and you go to the show post for Amsterdam Film Show, and links for the films and some of these new stories are there. Finally, as well, Lab 111 are looking for volunteers to be on their reception and stuff like that. And I think, you may get entry into a few films if you take those up on that. So those are the big main news stories, I think. Yeah. And then also Cine Expat is already back at the Cine Centre. So if you've got some of the foreign language films, they're already back. They've been bursting to go. There's just so much to do, isn't there, Jons?
Yeah, exactly. And the floodgates have opened. We can finally go again. And now everyone wants to go in all directions.
Absolutely. For now, thank you for listening. Thank you to Jons for joining us.
And thank you very much for having me.
Broadcast Amsterdam.
Broadcast Amsterdam, your local radio station, 24/7 and on demand. Or on broadcastamsterdam.nl.
Podcast Amsterdam.